Welcome. The purpose of this session is to teach you some basic tools and techniques for editing your data in eViews. Obviously, cutting and pasting data into eViews is fundamental. Creating work files is and series as well, but sometimes you want to add data to the end of a series or make changes to a set of series, and eViews has incredibly powerful operators to allow you to make these changes in a fairly rather efficient fashion. So I'm going to try and demonstrate them to you by operating on the G2 group that we calculated previously. And as you remember, I finished up with them showing them in 4 graphs. So I'll go back and click on the View tab and bring up the spreadsheet view. Now you can see here again we've got 4 series. And they basically, well, the real GDP series for Australia goes from 1970 to 2013, and the real exchange rate for Fiji goes from 1980 down to 2000 and has missing values. Now suppose, for example, you want to make changes to these series. Something you might want to do is add a data point at the very end of the series when the new observation comes about. So in this case, you might want to change this value here. Or you might want to get rid of these NAs by putting in, say, zeros or some other number to initialize them, or even 100. Likewise for sugar output. So how do you do that in eViews? Well, the first thing you have to do is recognize that in this mode, where you see just a spreadsheet view of of the data, you can't change the data. In other words, it's not in edit mode. And the way you have to get eViews in edit mode, where it allows you to make changes to the data, is to click on the edit tab here. And as soon as I do that, the editor becomes visible, and you notice, well, obviously the editor, let me just point it out to you, is this area here in terms of typing in the values of the series that you want to change. But of course now the spreadsheet here, where it's got the data, is also live, so we can easily make changes to the data. So for example, suppose I want to make a change to this NA value. I just basically put the cursor or click the cursor onto that NA value, and I type the value that I want, and it could be 0. So I'm just assuming that it's 0. I could also make it equal to 10, no problems. Whatever number you want, it will record it, and it will immediately record that value into the work file. Okay, so just to confirm that, suppose I close the series and then open it up again, notice that basically the 10 is already there. Now, this can get a bit tedious if you need to get rid of a lot of the NAs in one go. So another way of doing it in eViews is actually, once you're in edit mode, you basically select the series that you want to change in one go and simply say equals 100, for example. And immediately what eViews does is change all of the highlighted series to make them equal to that particular value. There are many operators in eViews actually that work like that, but I'll show you once again here. I'll just select the NA terms, and for sugar output, and say, let's assume it's just equal to 4,000 to put a value there. Obviously that's extreme, but you know, it's purely for illustrative purposes. And now what we've done by doing this is essentially removed the missing values. So eViews has a lot of functions available to you to edit a time series and indeed replace a lot of missing values very quickly. In short, these are called array operators, and to end this session, what I'm going to do is introduce you to 3 more array operators that you might find useful in your work. Okay, so now let me pick up a series with some missing values in it. And you remember in the very first session, or when I imported the data, you always ran into this thing called sugar output Fiji missing. And if I open it up, basically you'll see a series there that has sugar output series, but with 2 values missing deliberately, the one in 1998 and the other one in 2005. Now, there are 3 operators that I want to introduce to you here that eViews has. They're actually quite useful, and I'll just point them out all in one go before I actually use them. The first is essentially the squiggle key, and actually you'll end up going equals squiggle, typing that in the edit command line, which I'll introduce later. And that's actually called the cubic spline interpolator. And what that will do is replace the missing values here by performing a cubic spline on the available values and replacing the NAs for you automatically if you use that option. The second operator that I would like you to learn is the following one, where it's equals hat, and that's actually equivalent to linear interpolation. And so again, it'll pick up on the adjacent series around the missing values and then do a linear interpolation to remove the missing values. And then the final operator is, again, equals with the underscore. And what that does, and you have to be pretty careful using this operator, but what it does is it takes the most recently available value and then copies it to the area that you've selected. And if that includes NAs, then those NAs will be replaced. If that area that you've selected includes existing values, they also will be replaced with the most immediately known previous values. So that's replace using previous known value. Okay? Known value. All right. So how do these work in practice? Quite straightforwardly. What I'm going to do is start off with the underscore operator. So let me just remove all that writing. And I'm going to pick 1998 here. And I'm going to use set the edit mode on. So obviously we have to have that on. And if I press equals, followed by the underscore key, which is shift, hit the minus sign, and you get the underscore value, of course. Now, I would expect, once I press enter here, that the value of 1998 will equal 3280. So as you can see, essentially what's happened is that the operator, using the underscore, took the 1997 value, which was the most immediately known value, and replaced the NA in 1998 with 3280. Okay? All right, so that's an example of the underscore operator. Now, if I want to remove, now I'll just get rid of that number now, just for the sake of, so that I don't forget it was in 1998. Return it back to missing. Now let's concentrate on this period here from 2003 to 2007. And I'm just going to use the linear operator, or linear interpolation operator. Remember, it was equals hat, or the key above the 6 key. By pressing shift and I hit the 6 key, I get equals hat. And if I press enter, what eViews has done is replace the missing value in 2005 with 3113.5, which is simply the linear interpolation between the adjacent values of 3001.0 to 3226.0. Okay, so that's using linear interpolation. So they're just an example of three. That's an example of 3 operators that you might find useful to remove missing values in a time series within where the missing values occur within existing values, and they could end up enabling you to save or to add additional series to your regression. Okay, so that's the end of the session on editing time series. I hope you're convinced that there's a lot of powerful tools available to you to edit time series in eViews, and some of these tools will be brought up again in some of the problem sets, so I encourage you to now turn to those and improve your skills in editing time series. So thank you for listening.